First up, though, let's talk about politics in Northern Ireland, not just related to the DUP providing 10 votes to shore up the government's majority for their Queen's Speech vote last night, and they'll expect to do it again at 5 p.m. tonight as well. But other politics is really taking precedence in Northern Ireland because, of course, today is the deadline for the Northern Ireland power sharing deal to get back in place. There've been the politicians on all sides that have been working through the night to try and resolve their various issues before they can get basically local rule back on the books. Let's talk to Mick Fealty about this. He's editor at sluggerotool.com, Northern Irish political blog. Thank you so much for joining us, Mick.
Hi, Julia.
Now, can you just first give a little bit more Janet and John for us than perhaps a lot of this coverage is? Let's go back to the start here. We've had a power sharing deal, obviously, ever since the Good Friday Peace Agreement in 1989, and that's always involved that there would be a leader from the Unionist and from the Republican side in the First Minister and Deputy First Minister roles. Now, this only a few months ago collapsed after Martin McGuinness decided to resign shortly before his death, bringing down the government. Explain to us why that happened and why it's taken so long to bring power sharing back to the Northern Ireland.
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. I'm still not 100% sure as to why it has taken so long, because as you heard in the news there just before you restarted there appears only to be one issue separating the two. Really, what's happened is we've had 10 years of stability. That was unprecedented, even since the Good Friday Agreement. It's all stop, start. So collapse is something we thought was an historical pattern in Northern Irish politics. But as you say, just after January, after the controversy over the renewable heating incentive, when it was discovered that the overrun costs of that small but significant half
£500 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, but over 20 years, that brings it down to about 20 million a year. And then once and they've known about it. Both Sinn Féin and the DUP had known about this for about a year before the controversy blew up. And in that time, they got it down to an overrun of about 2 million in terms of what it would cost after they'd closed the scheme down and managed costs. But really, I think the real key to understanding why Sinn Féin and the DUP fell out was they fell out after just 7 months of having an official opposition. And my own personal feeling about it is that neither the Sinn Féin nor the DUP enjoyed that kind of scrutiny. And I think it's going to take more than just the settling of one issue to get both parties back into power again.
So what is this one issue that is separating them?
It's an Irish Language Act. It's something that Tony Blair had put in the St Andrews Agreement of 2006-2007, but there was no means to do it unless there could be agreement between these two political parties, who between them have been the lead political parties since 2007, the elections of 2007. And in 10 years, they've not been able to agree terms for one single act. Now, where they're at the moment is Sinn Féin wants it to be an act that only makes provision for the Irish language, and the DUP have said we will assent to an act, but it has to include Ulster Scots as well. And that's what everything is waiting for. Marriage equality can be done as soon as the Assembly goes back to work, and there will be other things around abortion that can be processed as soon as they get back to work. But it all comes down to this one symbolic act over the provision.
And the parties would actually, it's possible that they could refuse to actually come to agreement on that and risk having effectively rule from Westminster again, and all of the implications of that, and all of the uncertainty. I've got to be honest, I think an awful lot of people in the British mainland find themselves sort of shaking their heads at some of these, I think, antics, as we would see them. It's just sort of that surely stability and peace is more important than that.
Well, I'm in agreement with most of your leaders. It does seem to be a fairly thin excuse for not taking power, not taking the opportunity to begin to shape Northern Ireland's future. I mean, these are the two most powerful parties in Northern Ireland by a very long way. They have outstripped the opposition parties. They've made the opposition, if it goes back in, almost much less powerful than it was before Christmas. But let's not get too carried away. In Northern Ireland, when negotiations, have deadlines, the deadlines are set and they're broken. Then there's a claim that the next deadline really is the deadline, and then they repeat that recipe as often as possible. It's almost as though they're reluctant to go into government because they're reluctant to take responsibility for any decisions that they might have to make as a result.
And there must be an element where that people who've been in power, they don't like to relinquish power. Everyone likes their chauffeur-driven cars and their red boxes and all of that, and the pay. And there must be an awful lot of people clamouring really to get back into those positions of power and get back those nice jobs.
Well, you put your finger on it there when you just said that. When you said the words red box, the truth is nobody in Stormont has control of the red box. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is the only one throughout the United Kingdom that has control over tax and spend. And the problem for all political parties in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland is you only have control of spending. You don't have control of how much you have to spend. And in a sense, the DUP Conservative deal is the potential for a real restart here, because it's a pretty miserable experience being Minister of Health when you have no control over how much money is going to come down through the pipeline from Whitehall. And when you're in power in a devolved region that has no real say over who the United Kingdom government has been, that's why, in a sense, this could be a breakthrough. Now, it's not going to be a breakthrough today, but my sense is that this could maybe continue on until autumn time, until the public inquiry around RHI makes its first oral report, and as we all suspect, will clear the First Minister of any wrongdoing. And then at that point, perhaps the optics are okay for Sinn Féin to re-engage.
Because they've basically said, we're not going to go back into government while Arlene Foster is going to be First Minister. It couldn't just be that the DUP just said, well, it won't be Arlene, it'll be another one.
No, the DUP will not back down on that, and I think the Sinn Féin already know the content of the public inquiry because they already know the detail of the controversy, and really Arlene has nothing to step down for. It's a little bit like this argument. We call them sham fights over here. It looks like a real fight, but in actual fact, it's just about signalling to their retainers and their backers and their tribal legions that they're not really friends with each other, that there is a real rift between the two of them. The trouble is, increasingly, health, schools, and all the realities of life in Northern Ireland are left to go to hell in a handcart, so to speak, as a result of all that tribal signalling that's going on. And that's the real danger here, is that we just simply don't have two parties who can realistically signal to their own base why they're in government with their own most deadly enemies.
Yes, it is absolutely fascinating, Northern Ireland politics. It makes Westminster politics look like a playground. Mick Filty, thank you so much for joining us. Editor at sluggerotoole.com. I love the name of your blog, by the way. He's Northern Irish political blog, well worth a read. Thank you so much for explaining all that.